what do you think life will look like 20 years from now? That was something I was really curious
some ideas, some teachings.
Yes, I've done art all my life. I will always do it. But my
section of art, social justice, and the human spirit.
That was allowing me to really express myself.
Hi, I'm Douglas Bell, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Ringing the Bell, where we are interviewing artists, authors, and storytellers who use their creativity to challenge, heal, and transform the world around them. Today on Ringing the Bell, I am sitting down with author, attorney, and podcaster Spicy Dicey for a fearless conversation about writing erotica, embracing taboos, and reclaiming pleasure as power. Known for her Narcoleptic Vampire series and unapologetic storytelling, Dicey blends horror, fantasy, and sensuality to center Black voices and challenge societal norms. Today, we're going to explore how erotic fiction can be a tool for liberation and why taboo themes deserve a place in literature and what it means to write about shame without shame or apology. Dicey opens up about her journey from law school to indie publishing and her mission to amplify unrepresented voices and why claiming your story is a radical act of self-love. If you ever felt like your truth was too much for this world, this is a conversation for you. And I want to welcome Spicy Dicey.
Hey, thank you for that welcome, Douglas. That was amazing.
Oh, well, thank you.
You make me sound very interesting.
Hey, you know what? You know what? I think you are very interesting since we first met. So, doing a little research. So you've written 15 novels.
Yes.
And a number of short stories.
Yes.
So how long have you been writing now?
Okay, so as we were talking about beforehand, I've been a writer. That's been my strong area before I can remember. When I started writing fiction, however, is in 2009 when I was home with my daughter. It gave me a little time I didn't have much time, but I made the time to actually focus on writing fiction. I had so much creative energy, so much that was going on in my head. This was the time for me to actually, I needed that outlet. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing that then. I didn't start publishing until 2011.
So now, but your fiction, as we opened up, it is erotica, it's horror, and it's supernatural?
Yes, and I do a combination of those things. So sometimes it's just erotica. I have a rock star series that it's heavily about music. These couples that they go through a lot of trauma and they bond over the trauma, but they heal through music. So that is pretty much erotic. There's not a whole lot of creatures in that one.
Okay.
But then I also have books where I mix the eroticism with horror, with sci-fi, with fantasy. That's my Narcoleptic Vampire series, as you mentioned. That's also my Demented Dimensions series. So sometimes it's just the horror, and sometimes it's a mixture. I like to genre bend.
So I have so many questions, but how do you? Okay, if you go back to the Narcoleptic Vampire series, and these vampires, and so you're also mixing with that. Tell me again the mix of that again.
Okay, so in my vampire series, it's heavily erotic, and I have to tell people that because sometimes the people who are interested in just the dark, they find out there's a lot of sex going on, then they might have some issues. And the people that are interested in just the erotic, if they find out there's some demons, werewolves, dragons, outside of the vampires, they're going to have an issue with that. So I try to make sure people know what they're getting into. Some books, like in this series, they are post-apocalyptic. So that's where a lot of the sci-fi comes in.
Okay.
And some where it's horrifying because we are dealing with creatures and there is a lot of murder. So they don't have any limits. So I stretch the imagination and I just mix it all up as the characters write the story.
Okay. So were you always into erotica?
Okay, yes.
Okay, all righty.
So I remember the first smut that I read, I was in 6th grade, and at school, one of the girls in school, and I think she's since deceased. But at the time, she used to bring these Jive magazines to school, and I'm a rabid reader.
Okay.
So this was just something else to read. And I got those Jive magazines and I was reading them, and that's when I discovered there's this part in there, and I hope you don't have to take this out because I know this is YouTube, but there was a part in there where they said, and he entered her. And I was like, entered? What do you mean? They're not just,
they got your attention.
So, yeah, I was
got
like,
your
entered. And then everything started making sense.
Okay.
So it was through that I was like, ooh, okay. And I wanted more of that. And I started reading more. I read all of the, it's not about the pictures. It's about the confessions, the stories that were in there. And from there, I started reading romance,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Harlequin.
So we've got, but where in all of this did science fiction, I find it so curious, where did the science fiction part come in?
Okay, that's a good question because that's where my love of vampires came from. We're talking Fright Night. I'm up late. It's about 4:00 in the morning. I'm at my uncle's house. It's
Now, this is
dark.
when you were a kid? Or this
I was in my teens.
You
then.
okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was in my teens. I don't want to tell my age on here, but I'm not a spring chicken. So back in the 80s, when I was younger, I was up watching Fright Night. And so I was terrified, but I was also turned on. Like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful, but this is also kind of scary.
Right.
And this is, so I just started getting into everything vampire that I could read from there. Anne Rice, Bram Stoker, everything. And it was, I kind of naturally developed the love for mixing the eroticism with the horror.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So you're writing. What's your routine? Do you have a writing routine?
I would like to say that I do because that sounds way more professional. It sounds like, man, she's really serious, but I don't. I can't because I let it flow. Like when the creativity is flowing, I gotta let it roll. I can't. The structure of things is too constrictive. And I need the freedom to be creative. And so I don't have a routine. When I get into the story writing, I got to get it out. So my process is really slow in the beginning. Getting the first chapter, getting the pacing, getting the voice, laying down the foundation. And then somewhere towards the middle, the characters actually take over.
Okay.
And they write the story. So I have general guidelines. I know where the story is going. But then when they take over, that's where the beauty is. I don't even know what happens next myself. So they write it, and then it kind of flows. I can write 50,000 words in a week after that and just let it rip. But initially, it is a struggle. There's a lot of research, and I get lost in the research. I don't know about you when you're writing.
You can't get lost in the research.
I have something in my head that I want to look up, and then I go down the rabbit hole, and it's like, oh man, well this is interesting. Oh, that's interesting too, and that's interesting. Right. But as writers, we also have a lot of input. We get input from everywhere, and you don't know how it's going to come out, or in what way, or what character, what part of the plot you're building. So I need the flexibility to be able to flow as it flows, as it comes.
Now, I'm more of a type of writer where I'm trying to find balance between going with the flow, but then I would like to get 300 words a day. Do you kind of fight for this kind of daily goal or weekly goal of words on paper or anything? Does that ever kind of...
No, I don't, and I'm kind of a freak of nature in this regard. I know going into the story, whether that's a short story, whether it's a script, because I write scripts also, whether it's a full-length novel, I know going in, this is going to be about 90,000 words. I know exactly where my mark is going to be. This is going to be about 85,000. This is 75. This is 12,000. And so when I start writing, I can tell based on my chapters how it's flowing. So I don't have a particular word count goal, but I know about the pacing of it, how many words I need to be writing in this chapter. Okay, so this needs to be about 2,000, and I know it's finished around 4,000, or it just depends on whatever it is that I'm writing and how I feel that it's going to come.
Now, you got me kind of thinking, too, because as much as you really said you're very flowy and stuff, your answer really was very organized, at least in my head. Are you using any software? So like, for instance, I started using Plotter.
Okay.
Are you aware of Plotter?
Douglas, there is so much stuff out here now.
It is. It really is. But you're so organized, so I wondered if something like that was helping you be organized or stay organized. But I found this program called Plotter, and it's very pictures in terms of organization of things, and it just made me think of that. That's all.
Okay, well, thank you for saying that. I'll look it up. I went to Vegas last year. I usually am part of the AV team with this this writing conference that they have every year, and I happened to be in the room last year where all these different program owners, founders were there, and they were talking. And then I was like, oh my God, there is so much stuff out here now that you can use. I'm old school. I have not transitioned yet, and that's probably why I haven't put out more stuff, because I need to be able to keep up. I need to get on some of these programs, and I'm not yet. For me, I know the prototype for my character. So let's say I want this character to look like Rihanna. I'll pull up a picture of Rihanna, and it's on my screen. Hey, I want this guy to look like, a fitness guru or whatever.
Blair Underwood.
Yeah. So I'll put a picture of him up, and those are my prototypes that I reflect back to. It's just a picture, and I just use Word, and I know that is so old-fashioned right now. And I do need to figure out these new technologies, because we got to use these tools. I don't want to go the way of Blockbuster, right? I got to keep up with Netflix. I got to keep up. I got to know what's happening.
Yes.
I just haven't yet.
Yes. So for anyone out there listening, I just want to tell you that I have been really pleased with something called Plotter. So I just want to tell you about that.
All right.
Now, I want to go back to the vampires and horror and everything else. I haven't always been a big horror person, but you got my attention right now.
Okay.
So, vampires. Is it anything more you would like to do with vampires that you haven't done with them yet?
I have not thought about that.
Or werewolves. Is it anything that a werewolf should be doing you haven't tried yet?
I don't know. I have not thought of that. I have an intersex vampire, so I have gone through the process in my head of thinking, what sort of characters do we not see all the time, and how can I do something different for what could be considered a saturated genre. So I think about these things all the time, but I have not written anything in my vampire series in the last couple of years. I've been on other things. I've been on other projects. So it's not until I get an inspiration to write another vampire story, I won't be thinking about what kind of character or what I could do differently yet. I've been thinking in terms of my other stories, like Demented Dimension. That is an anthology, so I have like 6 stories in 3 different books, so it's 666.
Okay.
So with that, those are all different characters in each of those different stories. So my mind has been like,
okay.
So I have not thought about vampires again. I do have a story in Slay, which is a vampire noir. It has maybe 15, 16, 17 different black vampires from different authors, and I have a story in there called Diary of a Mad Black Vampire. And that was another story that's not in my Narcoleptic Vampire series. But
can I ask what she was mad about? Would that get?
Do you want to really know?
Well, yes, I do want to.
Okay,
yeah, can we talk? Yeah, this is interesting.
Yes, because nobody has gotten it. I've talked to people, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from that. Like, people really love that. That brought them to my other work, right? But in this story, do you know what it really is underneath all of the mess that happens? Boredom kills. That's the message in my head at the time when I was writing it.
Boredom kills.
Yes. But
not in trauma, not some man.
It was about boredom. It was about boredom.
Okay.
And listen, it's not even the vampire that is the villain. That's all I'll say.
It's not.
It's not the vampire that's the villain. And people, I set it up for this. I like to do a lot of twists and turns, so it could be dark, but I like to throw in some unpredictable surprises in there. And if you're not paying attention, it's going to sneak up on you in this story. But so boredom kills, and it's not necessarily the vampire that is the problem.
So given something like that, is it okay to say that's a very Eurocentric storyline, vampires, and how do you transform it by adding blackness to it?
Okay, and I like this because during the evolution of coming up with my first vampire story, I was thinking, I know what people are going to want to see, and I was thinking of a white male character.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, that's not fair. There's tons of white males, like I want to see myself represented.
Right.
And then I was like, but people aren't going to probably want to read it. I'm thinking about the cover design. I'm thinking about all this.
Correct.
And this is kind of how I start to develop my brand in terms of breaking the molds. I want to throw in stuff that we don't normally see all the time.
Correct.
And I want to see more of us. In this genre, there's not a lot of us. Now, shout out to Sinners, okay? The movie that's out right now, that's everywhere. Shout out Ryan Coogler, all of them. They did their big one. But this is not something that we see all the time. And so I took it upon myself to make sure that I had representation. And it's not just black vampires. Like I have the gamut. I have a red-headed, freckle-faced dragon.
Okay.
And there's a lot of pairings with different species.
And when you say pairings,
partners.
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
About to put the wrong word in there.
Right. Well, no, yeah, exactly. No, yeah, I'm with
busy.
you. Okay, they get okay.
Yeah.
All righty then.
So,
okay.
What was your original question here?
My question was, how does the story change when you add blackness to it? When you add how we perceive the world? When you add in how our traumas, or does it? Or I say it doesn't have to be our traumas. But my question is that how do you transform that story so that when black people pick it up, they know they see themselves?
Yes. And
I don't mean to cut you off, or when someone else who's not black picks it up, learns something about who we are and how we perceive the world.
Okay. So I don't specifically set out to do that. I don't want, if you have a black character that you're reading, or a Hispanic character, or a gay character, like it's inclusive. I have everybody. I don't want someone to read it and say, this sounds like this. The characters naturally flow. Like I have an Irish character. I've never been to Ireland, but I study this character in depth, and then I had a sensitivity reader come back and tell me if it worked or not.
Right.
But I want people to feel themselves reflected. So it's more a showing thing than it is a telling.
Yes.
So I don't want to tell you this person is this and this and this. So I hope I'm not doing it heavy-handedly.
Right.
I want it to naturally be a part of the development.
Right.
So I have a lot of interracial couples, like I said, interspecies couples. You know when you're reading it that these people are different. There is a characterization, like I do describe them because I want you to be able to visualize them.
Right.
But I don't want it to be, like I'm not going to throw in a bunch of slang so that you'll know this is somebody that's from the hood or, whatever it naturally is, this is what I feel like I'm channeling. Because remember I said the characters take over. So if I have my prototype, it's surprising. If I have somebody that looks like Rihanna and I have somebody that looks like Tatiana, in the writing, or Tiana, I'm thinking of Tiana Taylor. If I am imagining how they would sound, first I'm gonna watch a lot of their videos, a lot of their interviews, and adapt how they sound to the character dialogue and their fashion sense. I'm going to put that in there in a way. So when you are reading it, it feels like a different person, even though I didn't specifically, I didn't intend to make it seem like a black person.
Okay.
I don't know if this is making sense.
No, I see what you're saying. It's just, you're correct. You don't want to feel contrived.
Right.
Yes. No. And I definitely understand what you're saying. But you're right. When I am thinking about a black vampire per se, and you start thinking about, what is it, back in the '60s, and you had all of the kind of very Afrocentric movies and black vampires. Even Eddie Murphy did. I'm thinking of something. I'm just wondering, in your world, in your version, how do you transform that character And I definitely hear what you're saying, right? Because we don't want characters that feel contrived or forced. That is not what we want to do.
Yeah,
Totally agree.
but you're making a good point, and it's something that I hadn't really thought of before. Like, how do you know when you're reading this that it's a black vampire without the description? But I think a lot of the cultural stuff comes in also. So if I'm describing, if someone has an afro, something like that, or it's very clearly
it may not be.
Yeah.
You are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like for myself, since I feel like, for me, writing has been a form of activism.
Okay.
And so if I've got your attention and there's something about that particular scene where I think it's an opportunity to inform you, and not in a heavy-handed way, but just inform you, then I am trying to use that opportunity to leave you with something. So that's also too where when I was thinking of that question, kind of like, well, how do you transform these stories, these characters who in a lot of ways are being proudly perceived as not a person of color? How does it get changed that they are a person of color? Because what we see and what we do is much different, and how we perceive it is much different than what
Right.
the populace is experiencing.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, let me also say kudos to you for your activism and putting that in there. Mine is intended to be entertainment. I will say that. So I'm not trying to steer anybody towards any way.
Yes.
In fact, I have a lot of controversial elements throughout all the books. And so it's not something where I want people to be like, oh man, I really feel like going out here and doing something great today. No, if you feel like going to have intimate time with your partner, then I've done my job. Or if you feel scared, then I've done my job. Like I'm not really trying to save humanity.
Okay, I like that. So along that same vibe though, so you have a podcast as well.
I do, yes.
It's called Sex and Horror.
Yes, Sex and Horror podcast.
Okay. All right, let's talk about that. So tell me how that got going.
Okay, so a fellow author, Chantel Renee, and we did a lot of panels together at some of the Comic Cons we used to go to. Okay. And I was doing a radio show at the time with metal music again, something off the beaten path.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And so I was like, she and I were talking, and she was like, have you ever thought about a podcast? And I was like, yeah, actually I have, but it's not something that I wanted to just do by myself. Yeah. And so she was very interested, and we're almost done with our 6th season, almost 200 episodes now.
Oh, get out of here.
Yes, we're not new to this. Yes.
Wow.
We've been doing it a while. And we have had some great guests, and everybody is great, you know. And we have had some wonderful conversations. Sometimes we want to make sure that if it is a little or no known artist, that we are giving them time, giving them a platform to be able to talk about their work. Sometimes we have celebrity guests where we want people to know a little bit more about them, go a little in depth where they don't normally talk about. And so we've had, sometimes we're just reviewing movies and TV shows. Sometimes we're talking about hot topics. We've had spiritual mediums. We've had filmmakers, authors. We've had clowns. We've had burlesque dancers, porn stars, you name it. If it is in the sex and horror genre, we want to talk about it. We have not had Diddy.
And I'm going to leave that alone, too. I'm going to leave that alone. Now, here's a question that kind of came up are there some misconceptions about being a black female writer in the erotic / science fiction / horror?
Misconceptions? Well, one that comes to mind is that people assume that all my characters are black.
Oh, okay.
And I have, when I say inclusive, I really mean inclusive.
Right.
And some of them, on the book, my book Shameful, is the main character is not black, and people just assume she is.
Right.
I ended up changing the cover. When I changed the cover, it ended up selling even more again. But it's a Hispanic female as the lead. So one of the misconceptions is that I only know I only know black characters. I only know black people. I only know people who look like me. But I actually I feel like I study human nature, and so I do some head swapping sometimes in my books. So sometimes I'm talking from the male's perspective.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm a man.
Okay.
When I'm writing.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm a teenager. Sometimes I'm an old woman. And so I feel like I said, the characters channel, and they
Right.
come through with whatever divine message of that they're trying to get out. And I, again, not activists, but whatever message it is that they're trying to get out. So the another misconception would be that the quality is poor.
Yeah.
You know, we get that as indie authors. They
Yeah.
just assume. I've had people read it and
Yeah.
they're like, you know what? That was surprisingly good.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, why
right.
is that surprising, Dan?
Right. That is true.
Why is that surprising?
That is true. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning. But you know, that kind of is in general. I hate to sound like that, but anyway,
Yeah.
yes. Okay. I like that one. Do you have any advice for any advice for any new authors, emerging authors, especially in this particular genre? Do you have any advice? I mean, considering the fact you've got a lot of work under your belt, and like I said, I find it impressive, and I really applaud it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah.
Sometimes I forget that I've actually done this, you know, because
Yes, you have.
Because in my mind, I am so much further. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many other things that I have done in my mind that I haven't actually physically done yet. So people will ask, where's the sequel to this book? And where's the sequel to this? It's coming. Like, it's written in here.
Right.
It's just not on paper yet. I'm sorry, I haven't gotten to it.
Because on paper takes
It takes a little bit longer.
it takes a little bit longer.
I have so many sequels already written in my head, but you know, I still do the day job and stuff too, and I still have a family and kids, so it's coming at some point.
So what's your advice for that same person's family, kids, work? What's your advice for that emerging writer?
Well, I would tell anyone to do it. I know a lot of times, I meet people all the time that say that they want to write.
That's true.
But they haven't written anything.
That's true.
Or they've started right and then they haven't finished.
That's true.
So I tell people, you have to start and you have to finish.
Yes.
So some of the tips that I give for starting and finishing is, and this is what I do with my kids too. We do sprints. So I will put on like some focus music on YouTube, and we are going to sit down and we're going to do whatever. My daughter's cleaning her room. My son is doing his homework.
Okay.
I'm writing. And we are going to let this play out for 2 hours. You do not get up. So you go ahead and go to the bathroom. You go ahead and do whatever it is you need to do. But
Right.
once this starts, once our clock starts, you're going to sit here and you're going to start writing. You're going to start doing whatever it is you need to do. And you're not getting up until that 2 hours is finished.
Right.
Can you imagine how much we accomplished during that period?
Yes.
That is one of the
Yes.
things that will really help people get from A to B to C to D. If you do that every day,
Yes.
then you can finish your project.
Yes, you can.
But you've got to finish it. And it's okay if it's crap.
Correct.
You can go back and
Correct.
edit. There's nothing that says that
Yeah.
you have to publish it the first draft. Like,
Right.
you go back through, you edit. But, you know, we have to make money. We have to earn a living. We have to do our jobs. You have to do all the other things you have to do. So it has to be purposeful. You have to decide that you're going to do it and start. So that means in your busy schedule. Now, people tell me they're busy all the time. You are not busier than me, I promise. You are not busier than I am. You are not. I promise. Whatever it is that you're doing, you are not busier than I am.
That is
I
true.
am everywhere, all the time.
Yeah,
and
that
I am
is true.
busy. Sometimes I only get 2 hours of sleep, but I am busy.
Yeah, I know what
so
you're saying.
if I can find the time to
Yes.
write, so can you.
Yes. Totally agree. Well, now you talk about making a living. So you are an attorney.
Yes.
So does having a law degree, being an attorney, passing the bar, how do those things either affect your writing, impact your writing? How has that come into play? Or has it? Or does it?
Well, people just assume that I should write something like The Firm.
You're right.
They want me to write legal thrillers.
Right. And put a vampire in it.
Yeah. They want me to write legal thrillers, and maybe one day, but you know, I need something a little more dicey, a little more spicy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But how it happens, I find it very challenging to switch sides of my brains. So one is using logic and one is using the creative.
Okay.
Actually switch, creative, logic. And so I have to flip. So I can only obsess about one thing at a time. So if I'm obsessing about the characters, then I have to allow my time to not be working on a legal case right then.
Okay.
So if I'm working on a legal case that is requiring a lot of my time, then my creativity is hampered.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
That's the reality.
Because we got to get this done.
Yeah. So I try to make sure that I go really hard on the legal stuff that I have to do. And then I'll plan out, like I live by my calendar. I'll plan out, okay, you do this, but this week is dead week. I'm not doing any legal stuff during this week. And I have to allow myself to get back into the creative mode so that I can focus on my creative writing. And some of that, the podcast has taken up. The time that I spent talking on the podcast has taken up some of the outlet that I had for the writing. Correct. Like if I wasn't doing the podcast, I'd probably be getting more books out.
Right. kind of like right now. But this is fun stuff. So I gotta be honest with you. I enjoy this. So here, okay. What makes a good erotic scene?
Ooh, what makes a good erotic scene? Now, shout out to Zane. I like to say Zane is one of my favorite Black erotic authors. And I'm just going to say her name. I've met others, but because I really love Zane, I'm going to say her name. Okay. So at the time that I was considering whether this was something that I was prepared to do, because, I mean, you're putting your heart and soul into it. That's one thing. Like if I just wrote it and stuck it in a drawer, then nobody would know those are my thoughts. Right. That's very true. But if I'm going to write it and publish it, then somebody's going to know that I had that thought. You're going to know that I was there mentally at some point, and that's really the hard part. But
being seen, being vulnerable. Yes, that's the hard part.
Yes,
that's
I'm bearing my soul to you when you're writing this story. Even if it's not me, even though this is not my real story, it's still a thought that I had. Correct. And I decided that it has its value. Because when I talk to people and they say that I took their mind off of their troubles for a little while by just getting into my book, that is valuable. Yes. And people that say, that was really hot, you giving me the courage or the inspiration to be able to do X, Y, Z. Okay. That's value. Okay. So I had to pull back and look at it as something that is necessary, just like reading the newspaper or whatever it is that we do. Getting the erotic out is necessary too.
That is very true. So you're saying that a good erotic scene touches a person in such a way that they feel maybe validated, but then also courageous enough maybe to go talk to their partner.
Maybe.
So that could be a good erotic scene. That's why a scene is a good erotic scene.
Yeah, I probably did branch away from your original question. Thanks for willing me back.
Well, no, I was tying it all together for you.
Yeah, and then they also, because a lot of people have some creative energy in them that they haven't tapped into. They want to, but they're not sure. Correct. And so even knowing that somebody else is doing it gives them the courage to do it themselves. Yes. So they may be inspired. They may be inspired through the titillation process to go do their own thing. Because especially if I'm writing BDSM, I do have a lot of that's interwoven. If I have some of that in there, then they may be inspired to, I want to try this. Okay,
Correct.
Be safe.
Yeah.
But also they feel inspired to actually put their own thoughts on paper.
So let's do kind of a lightning round here.
Okay.
All right.
Lightning round.
Yes.
Uh-oh, hit me.
A little wrap up here.
Okay.
All right. Choice, vampires or demons?
Vampires, always.
Vampires always.
Always.
Now, what's the difference between a vampire and a demon?
Oh, come on. You know that. Well, first off, vampires are blood-sucking. That's the sustenance.
Well, demons can blood suck too, right?
Yeah, they could, but do they? I don't think they needed to live like vampires.
Okay.
Do,
That's a good difference.
And let me also say that I am coming from a place of fiction. I do know that there are some real vampires, But
Okay.
I'm coming from the place of fiction.
Okay.
So for fiction purposes, it could be anything you want it to be. I mean, Stephanie Meyer said her vampires sparkle, and let's just go with that. She can do whatever she wants to in her books. Yeah.
Okay, so
And
there's no rules here.
Yeah, there really are no rules. So the demons could have to live off of blood too if they want.
Okay.
So I'm just talking about from my
Well,
canons.
see, then that gets back to my point. See?
Yeah.
Okay, then. Okay, I see. I feel better now.
From my canons. From my canons, always vampires. I also see them as very beautiful. I see demons as very beautiful too, but it's demons are more kind of metaphorical in real life to me.
Okay. So now you said your favorite author was Zane, or one of your favorite authors was Zane.
One of my favorites when we're talking about erotica.
Right. So is there a favorite erotic book?
Of hers, Addicted.
Addicted. Okay. Let's see. Next question. Most badass female character you've written?
Oh man, all of them.
Okay, all of them. No one stands out?
Well, okay, let's go with I'm going to say this one just because it is the very last one that I've written, and this story is not out yet. It is coming out in an anthology in July called The Joke is on Mankind. It is a cosmic horror. I'm doing this under Dan Hink's imprint, but that story is Goddess, triple S, of the apocalypse. And
Okay.
that character is based on Medusa. So let's just go with her. So she's the most recent.
Okay. Writing late at night or early in the morning?
Always late at night.
Always late at night.
That's the witching hour for me. When I get started, before you know it, it's 7:30 in the morning. So somewhere
Okay.
between 11 and
Right.
7:30 in the morning, I have blanked out.
Okay. All right, last one. One word to describe your writing style.
Provocative.
Provocative.
Yes. I am a provocateur. The things that I write, I know is offensive to people, and I'm okay with that. But you need to figure out why you're offended.
Oh, that's on you.
That's on you.
I ain't
That
got
is not a me
nothing-
problem.
I ain't got nothing to do with that.
That is not a me problem.
Wow. Okay. So, Spicy Dicey, where can people find you on social media or internet or website?
Thank you so much for having me, Douglas. This has been amazing. I love to talk about my work, so we could go for hours.
No, we can't go for hours because I can say that you got
Yeah.
my attention.
Yeah, I love talking about my work, and I appreciate you having me on. You can find my work at diceygrinnerbooks.com. My website is not updated. There's no telling what's on there. But I am also on Amazon. If you're boycotting Amazon, know that I am also having a Shopify store. I have uploaded it. The books are there, but there's still a lot of stuff in the background that needs to be tweaked. So give me a few days or so to get that together. My daughter's helping me with that. And I tried to do the TikTok shop, but I don't know what in the heck happened with that. It glitched. So I'm going to put my Shopify store on the TikTok shop. So there will be multiple ways for you to get my books. I also do in-person events. I have a whole lineup. You can go to my my sites, my online presence on all the platforms is at Dicey Grinner. That's at DICEYGRENOR. That's on all the platforms.
Okay.
TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Patreon. I don't mess with X anymore, but there's some other sites that I have started, but I need to get one of those automated programs to shoot all of my content to all of the stuff at once because I'm inundated.
So now what about the podcast?
Oh, the podcast is on Spotify, but that's where it originates, but it does blast out to all the other.
Right.
Yeah, so wherever you
Right.
listen to podcasts, you can just put in Sex and Horror Podcast with authors Dicey Grinner and Chantel Renee, and we should pop up wherever it is that you listen to podcasts.
Okay. Well, I want to tell you thank you for being here, too. You definitely got my attention. When we first met, you did have my attention, and you still got my attention now.
Yay.
This has really been good, and I do want you to know I'm very, very impressed with what you have accomplished. And I want to tell you, thank you for doing what you do, because we need more people willing to be honest and put themselves out there and write the stories they want to write. So no, I want to say to you, thank you for being here with Ringing the Bell. I'm Douglas Bell, and you can find me at www.douglasbellbooks.com, and my social media handles are Douglas Bell, author. So thank you. Please click, subscribe, follow, and like, and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. If this conversation spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment below and let us know your favorite part of the interview, or share what poetry means to you. Hey, and if it inspired you, hit the like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep the power of words alive by spreading these stories far and wide. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications so you'll never miss a beat.